Today's episode of the Ink and Impact podcast is airing on Leap Day, February 29th, 2024. If you're unfamiliar with the purpose of a leap year, it's when we add an extra day to the end of the month of February once every 4 years to keep our calendars in sync with the seasons. I think it's a great reminder to ask ourselves if we're staying in sync with God and what He's asked us to do as writers. Are we communing daily with Him in His Word and in prayer? Or have we gradually pushed Him out of our daily routine as we attempt to complete our ever growing to do list? On this leap day, may our hearts leap with joy in His presence as we get back into sync with His plans and purposes for us. And if you feel out of sync with your self-publishing journey, like you just don't know what the next step should be, what to do, or maybe you feel overwhelmed with the entire process, I invite you to download my free new resource, a self-publishing checklist. This 2-page resource breaks down the self-publishing process and outlines all the action steps that you need to take and the things you need to consider at each stage of the journey. Whether this is your first time self-publishing or your 50th, this self-publishing checklist will help you stay focused and on track. So download your free self-publishing checklist at daylenebickle.com or by clicking the link in the show notes. All right, you may recall that back in episode 68, I asked, is there still a market for Christian books? Well, thanks to a recent 41-page 2024 State of Christian Retail report by the Parable Group, I can conclusively say yes, there is still a market for Christian books, particularly within independent Christian retailers. The survey was conducted among 200 US-based Christian retailers regarding their 2023 experiences, so just last year. And what they found was that these 200 stores collectively had $84.4 million in sales, and that equated to 2.26 million consumer receipts. So this is an exciting 8.1% increase in sales over the year prior, which was 2022. So what led to their increased sales? Well, 74% actively engaged in promoting their stores on social media, particularly Facebook and Instagram. 60% adjusted their inventory mix, meaning not just books, not just gifts. They, mixed it up, tried some new things. And quite a number of them, a percentage wasn't given, but quite a number of them introduced or increased their number of community events. And we're going to talk more about that a little bit later. So what exactly is selling? 25% of their units sold consisted of adult books, compared to 9% of Bibles and 8% of kids' books. Only gifts outsold adult books, and the gifts sold at 30%. And remember, the adult books sold at 25%, so that's pretty significant. Note that what I considered noteworthy was that kids' books tended to be primarily emerging or young readers, like early elementary and below. And it didn't show or break down anything about middle grade readers or young adult. So I thought that was interesting. But the top adult book categories, the top 4 were Christian living, devotionals, fiction, and Bible studies, followed in much smaller proportions by gift books, books on prayer, books on pastoral helps, general books for women, biblical reference books, and then church life books. So the major difference that they pointed out between mainstream or secular bookstores and indie Christian bookstores is that 50% of titles on the Christian retail top 20 books are new releases, compared to only 15% of new titles in mainstream books. And they were comparing, the Paragon Group was comparing their survey report to one conducted by Circana BookScan, which did the secular survey. So 50% of titles in Christian retailers were new releases, and only 15% in mainstream bookstores. That's quite the difference. Okay. Indie Christian retailers and indie Christian authors share similar beliefs about Christian books. That should come as no surprise, but I wanted to point out a few quotes that they shared in their report just to prove the point. So one retailer said, quote, "The impact of a good book on a person's life is life-changing." And these quotes are in response to a question about why they continue to do what they do. Like, why are they continuing to operate their independent Christian bookstore or retail store? Another one said, "It's a calling. We pray our work glorifies God in our community and beyond." Another said, quote, "To continue to impact people's lives for Jesus and help them in their walk of faith." And the one other that I pulled from it, they shared many more, is that they want to share the gospel and hope, exclamation point. So as you can see, that aligns perfectly with what we are doing as Christian writers. So how did Christian retailers market their stores? How did they bring in customers? So quite a number of methods were shared, but three stood out to me in relation to indie authors. First, they posted about their stores on Facebook and Instagram regularly. Second, they responded that their store sponsored local community events, charity initiatives, and so forth. And third, they hosted events such as Facebook Lives, book clubs, kids' story times in person, and those kinds of things. So all of this is fantastic news, right? But it led me to wonder, can you get your self-published book into an indie Christian bookstore? And that, my friend, is where I learned that the challenges arise. The fact is that retailers, Christian or mainstream, are businesses that have to make a profit. In order to make a profit, they have to stock items that have the greatest chance of selling. This means that they need to ensure that they're selling quality products that resonate with buyers, what buyers are looking for, what they want, and then buying these items in bulk at discount prices. Okay. So they need to purchase items from wholesale distributors and traditional book publishers who exhibit a proven track record in providing quality products. Indie Christian retailers also often attend trade shows to see the products firsthand, touch them, look through the books, look through the gifts, and vouch for their quality before they place an order. So armed with this knowledge, you might think, well, I'll just get my book listed with a distributor and attend trade shows. It sounds like a good plan, right? Well, while these appear to be simple solutions and can perhaps be accomplished in certain situations, they're not viable options for most indie authors. Consider the fact that the vast majority of indie authors publish their books through Amazon's KDP program, which serves as both the printer and distributor. But more than that, KDP books are sold on the Amazon online bookstore. Amazon's focus is on selling one-off copies directly to individual consumers rather than bulk orders to other bookstores. Thus, indie booksellers, Christian or not, are direct competitors with Amazon, and they will not take kindly to your suggestion that they buy your books from Amazon. Okay. Now, Ingram Spark, many of you are aware of them. I've spoken of Ingram Spark before. I've used them myself from myself and my clients, they are a valid book distributor to retailers. They're a wholesale distributor. So when you publish through them, your book is placed in their catalog and it is available for purchase at the retailer's prerequisite 40% discount or more if you choose to give a higher discount. But at least the 40% is required. However, even though your book is included in the catalog and you're giving that discount, your book is just one of thousands and thousands of books that retailers can choose from, right? And since traditional publishing houses also utilize Ingram Spark's catalog for their authors, your book is up against the big guns. In short, it's easy for your book to never be seen in the catalog's pages unless someone is specifically searching for it, which is why traditional publishing houses employ a marketing department to notify bookstores about upcoming new releases. Specifically within the Christian publishing world, christianbook.com, formerly known as Christian Book Distributors or CBD, is the go-to resource for wholesale Christian book distribution. But unfortunately, as an indie author, it's almost impossible to get your book listed in their catalog. I came across an in-depth article by Christopher D. Schmitz that outlines his exhaustive yet unsuccessful quest to learn how an indie author can get their book listed with christianbook.com. The blog post was written back in 2016, so that's quite a few years ago, but it still mirrors my own recent experience this past fall when I tried to crack the code myself. So you can access his blog post. It's titled, How Do I Get My Christian Book Listed on CBD, Christian Book Distributors. I have a link for that in the show notes, so you can check that out if you would like to learn more about that. Now, as for attending trade shows as an indie author, it tends to be cost prohibitive for most people. Not only is the booth or table space expensive, it's expensive, but you also have to invest in creating a professional display for that booth area, and you'll have associated travel costs. So, does all of this mean that getting your self-published book into an indie Christian bookstore is impossible? Well, I don't have any statistics or facts to prove otherwise, but the editor in me knows there tends to be exceptions to the rules, especially if it's God's will that your book be placed in a Christian bookstore. So, armed with the information from the recent Parable Group report that I shared, I have developed 9 ways to potentially work with indie Christian retailers and bookstores. But before I share them, I believe it's important to remind you that your potential success ultimately hinges on offering a quality, professional grade book. That is one that is well written, professionally edited and designed, and incorporates all of the traditional elements of a book. If you have any questions at all about this, feel free to schedule a book coaching call with me, and I'll help ensure that you have all the necessary pieces in place. All right. So, with that reminder out of the way, let's dive into the 9 strategies that, when done with a heart to get to know and support the retailer, has the potential to land your book some prized shelf space in their store. All right. Number 1, since many retailers have Facebook and Instagram accounts, they have large social media presence there, search for indie Christian retailers on those platforms and begin to follow some of their accounts, particularly ones in your area or region. And don't stalk them, but make routine, valuable, and engaging comments on their posts. Be relatable. Let them know that you're a real person and how much you appreciate them being there and supporting Christian authors, right? Number 2, go to their websites and get a feel for what type of books they currently feature and how they interact with their communities. Are they having events and so forth? Note their contact info and preferred method of communication while you're on their website. So, do they provide an email address and a phone number, or do they ask you to contact them via their website contact form? Whatever it is that they're providing, be sure that you honor their preference. When you reach out to them, this is point number 3, mention that you have written one of the top selling genres of books that sell well. Remember from the Parable Group's report, those were adult fiction, devotional, fiction, or Bible study. Why did I have, let me scroll back up. I have fiction listed twice there. One second. Look back at the report. Christian living. So if you've written Christian living, devotionals, fiction, or Bible studies, let them know that, right? But what you might be thinking, well, what if I haven't written one of those genres? Okay. No, not to worry, right? Tell them what you have written and how it will differentiate from what they currently have on their shelves, whatever type of genre it is. And let them know how it can sell well. For example, I mentioned earlier that their children's books that I think it was 8% sold at 8%. And I mentioned how it broke down, it seemed to be the books for emerging readers or even like board books and young readers. Nothing was said about middle grade or YA. So if you have written a middle grade or YA book, this is an opportunity for you to share how your book will fill a gap that exists in the market, right? And if you have any statistics or things that you can share about your area or the area that they're in, about how many children are there, or anything that you can, any fact or statistic that you can share to support your argument, put that in there as well. They might not be aware of that gap. Point number 4 of suggestions to try are to send them a sample review copy, a printed version of your book, not an ebook. And in the accompanying note that you're going to write with it, let them know where they can order multiple copies for their store to sell at the minimum discount of 40% or more, such as Income Spark. If you have printed through there, right? Obviously, this is you're not going to tell them to go to Ingram Spark if you didn't publish through them, right? And then be sure to follow up to make sure they received the book and ask them what their thoughts were about it. Number 5, if they're within driving distance of you, visit their store and introduce yourself as a local author. Offer to assist with any community activities they're planning, and don't be afraid to suggest that you lead such an event as a workshop or a reading, public reading. Anything that you can come up with, be creative of ideas that relate to the theme of your book and that would serve their community. Point number 6, if they're not within driving distance, remember how I said that they are starting to offer Facebook Lives? Offer to be a guest author on one of their Facebook Lives, or maybe even come up with a regular feature that you can do with them monthly. You could pitch that to them. Number 7, since indie retailers like to offer new releases to their customers, be sure to let them know when you have a new release or when it's, forthcoming, when you have that pub date set. Let them know it's coming, and then when it launches, let them know it's available. Number 8, remind them that you share their values. You're both indie Christian business owners looking to make a kingdom impact in their community. And finally, point number 9, when you act professionally, that is when you're able to confidently speak to the quality of your book, establish how your book addresses the needs of their community, their customers, And when you offer a way to boost their sales and get more people in their doors, you'll have a much better chance of getting them to stock your book on their limited shelf space. All right. So I've shared those 9 strategies, right? But keep in mind that you won't be able to make selling to indie Christian bookstores your only marketing avenue to become a profitable author. But I believe it's worth adding into your existing marketing strategy. Now, if a retailer decides not to carry your book, it's wise to continue to act professionally and represent Christ well. You may not agree with their decision, but it's not a reason to blast them on social media or speak rudely to them. Remember the old saying, don't burn your bridges. Just because they might say no to this particular book doesn't mean they won't carry a future book of yours. Continue to support indie Christian retailers, which also support your fellow Christian authors, both indie and traditional. So, while none of these 9 strategies guarantee that your book will be sold in indie Christian bookstores, they do provide you with innovative ways to interact with indie Christian retailers. Now, I hope that you found that helpful, and I wanted to conclude today by providing a quick update on my end. I'm nearing completion of the final chapter of the very rough draft of the dual autobiography of my husband and wife client. I am currently in the midst of Bookworthy Academy with my students. We are heading into week 3 of week 10 of this beta self-publishing course and group coaching program. So stay tuned for details about how to get on the wait list for the next launch of Bookworthy Academy. Also, all of us in the Inkwell membership are not only honing our craft at our weekly writing sessions, but we're also gaining lots of marketing clarity with our monthly craft chats. So if you'd like to join the Inkwell and experience some breakthroughs of your own, and if you'd like to download my new self-publishing checklist, simply visit dailenebickle.com to learn more about each of those or click the links in the show notes. So until next time, my fellow pen pusher, I wish you a blessed and productive author journey. Thanks for joining me today.